And it's probably appropriate that the fraternities and sororities would take the lead on this, for this is the first generation to benefit from Martin Luther King's sacrifice.
On November 13th, 2006, a groundbreaking took place in Washington, D.C. for a memorial to civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. This moment was a result of nearly 2 decades of work by the fraternity to which Dr. King belonged, Alpha Phi Alpha.
At one point while I was in college, all of the presidents of all of the colleges within the university were Alphas, showing leadership.
St. Louis and Sidney Reedy was a senior at Howard University when he joined the fraternity in 1964.
They did programs with youth in the neighborhood around our dormitories. There was so much civic service and the respect for women. That was the other thing that I saw.
Alpha Phi Alpha was founded December 4th, 1906, by 7 African-American students at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. It was originally formed as a study and support group for students who endured various forms of prejudice on campus. Over the years, it expanded to more Ivy League institutions. These are Harvard Alphas, to historically black colleges and universities and other schools across the country. From the beginning, academic excellence has been an Alpha cornerstone. Sidney Reedy and fellow Alpha brothers who make up the Epsilon Lambda graduate chapter gathered in South St. Louis for their annual Founders Dinner. This particular dinner celebrated a milestone, the fraternity's 100th anniversary.
It's a time of joy, obviously, to share with my brothers of all ages, all kinds of backgrounds.
2006 marked not only the centennial of Alpha Phi Alpha, but 100 years of a movement of African-American fraternities and sororities. APHIA, as it's also called, is the first of 9 Black Greek organizations. Their missions of civic involvement, community outreach, and philanthropy bear similarities to some predominantly white fraternities and sororities. But ensuring that young African Americans receive a good education has been a long-time goal of the Alphas. And in 1920, it led to the creation of their annual Go to High School, Go to College campaign. In fact, thousands of Alphas became educators themselves. However, the realities of segregation in the American educational system taught them the need to create change through the legal system. Lloyd Gaines was an Alpha who graduated with honors from Lincoln University in Jefferson City in the mid-1930s. Gaines called on his fraternity for help when he was denied admission to the University of Missouri Law School based on his race. In a landmark decision in 1938, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the state of Missouri to either admit Gaines to the law school or provide a facility of equal stature for blacks within the state border. The ruling resulted in the establishment of a law school for Lincoln, located not on the Jefferson City campus, but in St. Louis.
The Alphas, particularly the local chapter, supported him financially, gave him moral support. The lawyers within that group helped him with his strategy. And then one of the brothers, Dan Bowles, who was a founder both of Beta chapter at Howard University and Epsilon Lambda chapter here, became dean of the law school. So there was a big connection.
Alpha brother and attorney Thurgood Marshall successfully argued the Brown versus Board of Education case before the U.S. Supreme Court in 1954. Marshall's victory opened the door to integration of public schools, and in the following decade, he became the first person of color to sit on the High Court.
This was my first convention.
When the Alphas held their annual national convention in St. Louis in 1966, the fraternity honored Marshall.
The brothers march from the Jefferson Hotel to the old courthouse, and there brother Thurgood Marshall gave a rousing speech on really like the state of the nation and what Alpha needed to continue to do as far as its work. And then he was honored with an award, Alpha Man of the Century.
Soon as I can see Jesus. 3 years earlier, Alphas joined thousands of other Americans in the March on Washington. It culminated in Dr. King's historic I Have a Dream speech.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
That march itself was, and the speech, they were just so important because they showed the strength of African Americans and people with goodwill in general. It wasn't just African Americans. It had such a strong meaning that we thought there should be a memorial.
The National Memorial to Dr. King will be on a 4-acre site between the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials. The centerpiece will be a sculpture of the slain civil rights leader called the Stone of Hope. The project was spearheaded by Alpha Phi Alpha. The foundation set up to raise funds for building and maintaining the memorial is about halfway to reaching its $100 million goal.
Whatever's on this envelope, I want you to learn something about it today, all right?
Locally, Alphas have several community-oriented programs.
6. What are they?
This one is called Project Alpha. It's intended to help stem the tide of HIV infection and teenage pregnancies in the African American community by encouraging teenage boys and girls to be sexually and financially responsible and to set goals for their futures.
How about your friends? How about surrounding yourself with positive people?
While fraternity brothers of all ages assist with Project Alpha, it's the younger generation that takes the lead.
One of the things we see from just working with teens is that there's a lack of self-esteem, lack of confidence. When you don't value yourself, you make poor decisions. You choose to do things for the approval of others in many different forms. So the foundation of what we do is decision-making and goal-setting.
This apartment house at Ezell and Hodemont near the western edge of the city is another example of the fraternity's community involvement. Alpha Terrace, built for the elderly and disabled, is the last of 4 housing projects created through a partnership between Alpha Phi Alpha and the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
This neighborhood was declining and there was land available. So the first project was Alpha Gardens with 145 units and from 1 bedroom up to 4 bedrooms. And each of the projects was for a different type of family or a different type of person. This one being for the elderly, however that's defined, and for the disabled.
And for the record, it's not all work and no play for Alpha Brothers. During football season, for instance, you can hear the armchair coaching and smell the aromas of barbecued meats coming from the Epsilon Lambda Chapter House in North St. Louis. According to figures from the fraternity, well over half of all African American doctors, dentists, and attorneys are Alphas. Members have distinguished themselves in a wide range of fields, and their names read like a who's who of Black America. Among their ranks used to be someone whose memory is very special to me. My father, Dr. William Ezell, was president of Alpha Phi Alpha's graduate chapter in Detroit in the late 1960s. He joined the fraternity a few years after graduating from the veterinary medical school at what is now Michigan State University. He was a natural leader, one of the most intelligent, perceptive people I've ever known, and in my admittedly biased view, the quintessential Alpha man. Had he not passed away several years ago, I'm certain my dad would have joined Alphas from across the country in their 2005 pilgrimage to Cornell University, the campus where the organization was born.
We've known each other since December of 1965.
I knew his mother before he knew her.
And as someone who believed you should never stop learning and growing, my dad would be touched by the relationship between Sid Reedy and the Alpha brother Reedy calls his role model, 94-year-old Lamar Smith.
You used to play golf, didn't you, Lamar?
The doctor took my clubs away.
But he still comes to the golf tournament. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
3 weeks after this interview, Smith died during a visit to Texas. Active to the end, Smith was helping out a sick friend when he passed away. His life set an example that surviving Alphas are proud to follow.
We're brothers. and
Through life.
through life.